Hi folks, Joe Bongiovanni here again, sticking with Warren's deadly innocent frauds of economic policy again, because when people use language purposely seeming to mislead people to errant conclusions, that may qualify as being a fraud. Carrying on with that same first deadly innocent fraud, which has to do with whether or not the government, needs your tax money to spend or not, whether it needs it or not. The next thing after the shredder, IRS shredder, moves over to a discussion where a claim is made that, quoting Chairman Bernanke, that the government spends merely by keystroking. Now the thing about keystroking that I want to point out is that it's accurate to say that the government spends by keystroking. Okay, why? Because there's money in the bank. There's money in the bank. And when I go online later today and I buy another book on something or other, okay, I'm going to keystroke money out of my account into the account of whoever is selling me that book, whatever bookstore is selling me that book. There's no magic to keystroking. It's what we do all day, a lot of us, okay? But they make it sound like there's no money there. They just keystroke it into existence, which is a lie, okay? I'll say that. That's a lie. That would be a lie, okay? But I want to show how Warren used it. He says, here's a quote from the good Federal Reserve Bank Chairman Ben Bernanke on 60 Minutes for support. Now that's for support of the notion that the government doesn't need money to spend, okay? Federal Reserve Bank Chairman, okay? Because MMT ties the Federal Reserve and the real government into a government public sector for doing financial functional finance observations, making those observations. So Scott Pelley, is that tax money that the Fed is spending? The Fed is spending. Chairman Bernanke, it's not tax money. The banks have accounts with the Fed, which much the same way that you have an account in a commercial bank. I think keep that in mind. So to lend to a bank, we simply use the computer to mark up the size of the account that they have with the Fed. To lend to a bank. To lend to a bank. Now, Chairman Bernanke is saying to lend to a bank, we mark up their balances in basically in reserves, okay, in their account at the Fed. Now, does that say anything about government spending? No. Two reasons. Number one, the Fed's not the government. Number two, the Fed doesn't spend. The thing the Fed spends on is, rent or, paper clips or, computer supplies and stuff like that. That's what they spend on, okay? They don't spend as part of the government program. You won't find the government spending anywhere having anything to do with the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve's revenue sources are we the taxpayer, okay? We the taxpayer being the people who pay interest on the bonds that they hold. So he says the chairman of the Federal Reserve is telling us in plain English that they give out money. And then he puts in parentheses, spend and lend. No. The Federal Reserve Chairman is saying how they lend, okay? And how they do asset swaps is the same thing, okay? There's no such thing as having to get tax money, get taxes, or to borrow to make a spreadsheet entry we call government spending. No, the chairman didn't say anything about that whatsoever. Nothing. There's an inference drawn by Warren using the quote from the chairman, which didn't address the issue, and then by putting it in parentheses to spend and lend, okay, he tries to convince us that the government can spend, therefore, by doing the same thing, merely by keystroking without having money in the bank. Now, because the Federal Reserve can do that. I'll tell you what the Federal Reserve can't do, okay? Federal Reserve can't create any money for the government, and it doesn't spend any government money. spends its own money. So what's really happening there? Just keep this in mind as a starting point. So in other words, Warren goes through all of these machinations about that. Okay, just keep this in mind. The federal government doesn't ever have or not have any dollars. How's that for a great foundation for a monetary theory? Doesn't have or not have any dollars. You got to recognize fraud when it's coming right at you. More later. Thanks.